All right, and we're live now. We're live with the October Patron Hangout, which is, almost out of October at this point.
Like 3 days left in October, whatever.
And of course, this precedes next week's November Patron Hangout. So I hope our patrons have lots of questions for us these 2 weeks. But if you're not familiar with this, a Patron Hangout, what we do is we take our wonderful patrons who join us at patreon.com/Clix, and at any valuation, you're allowed to join this once a month episode where we kind of chill out, hang out, and ask, open up the floor to the patrons who have opened their wallets to us. So we'll open our hearts to them, and they're free to ask any questions that they feel like of myself and Amber. And then in some weeks, like next week, some of the guys from the Metal Lab as well, including whoever ends up being our new Metal Lab members. So,
fancy.
So we're looking forward to how that goes. But in the meantime, it's time to open up the floor to the patron who did show up on time this time. Some are going to be showing up a little later, but we'll see how that goes in the meantime. So Chad, floor is yours, sir. What would you like to ask myself and Amber?
What do you think of the WKOs coming up? I know you guys have a lot of sealed where you are, but everything around me is constructed. So I'm expecting to basically just see Unimind. Think that's going to be what's happening?
That sounds like the proper prediction, as it was.
Yeah.
If the Rock World Cup was any kind of indication, the meta is going to be dominated right. The Unimind is the new Jakeem. Now that doesn't mean Jakeem Thunder is not going to show up, but a lot of things that anything that beats Jakeem doesn't quite edge out a Unimind, and that comes into the problematic state of where things are right now. There are options out there. There's just not many. The most important being Kenny's team, which made the top 8.
Ed's team too.
Ed's team. I cannot remember what Ed's team was. Was that in the top 8?
Yeah, it was. It was in the top 8. He was the only other non-Unimind in the top 8, and his was a 100-point Carnage with 3 symbiotes, and then another Carnage, and I think a Nighthawk Prime and something else.
Yeah,
but it was mostly that he attacked with Carnages and ID cards.
So step 1 is to get your hands on a Nighthawk Prime. Barring a lack of the Nighthawk Prime, you need to be all up in Unimind's face, and that there are a number of Carnage strategies that can accomplish that. I saw one. I played against one specifically at the Canada Cup, which was a 100-point Carnage, a 50-point loaded up Fast Forces Hulk that had a Proteus and a what's his name, Supreme Intelligence on it, and a Mr. McSpitlick, which was really just an engine to get the TK out of the Lex Luthor. I think there's ways you can change that particular stratagem around and use that sidestep that you get out of the Supreme Intelligence in conjunction with the move and quake that you get with the Hulk, along with any number of wackiness to just kind of get in their face and get as many attacks off as you can. And then the trick with the Hulk is that it puts the Hulk in their face, and they have to deal with it. And they end up having to overdeal with a 50-point character. Or what's more is you can actually, if you can line it up properly, you can single target Quake with that Hulk with a 12 attack and 4 damage, 13 attack, 5 damage if you're including the fact that we're talking about the Proteus version of it, right? So if you single target Quake that Unimind, you can get to that stop click. And then once they start trying to retaliate against your Hulk, then they're stuck with a Carnage in their face the next turn, and then a symbiote next to that Carnage. You can see this overwhelming amount of force that comes at it. And then the 100-point Carnage isn't limited by the Colossal Indifference, so you're able to freely attack with it as well. So you've now Colossal retaliated, and then you're free to attack, which means if everything goes the way it's supposed to go with this number of things that I've just described, you can do a ton of damage to the Unimind and possibly get it off of the board along with a couple of the remaining dudes pretty quickly. You just have to time it well, be ready to do it, but also be ready for that 10 range. Oh my gosh, that 10 range could be 12, 13 range.
Ridiculous. Could
just obliterate your Hulk out of the water. So all of this is hypothetical ideas that you could do with it, but there's no kryptonite to the Unimind is the big problem right now. There's teams that can play hard and tough and last. Like my team, I didn't feel like I got crushed in any particular game. I felt like there was a moment in almost every single game that I played where I had a chance at winning. And my team was a double dinosaur based team. I think if anything, the weakest part of my team was Al Jordan, because I can get more sources of the powers that I want out of him, at the same time being able to do more on the team with a few smaller point characters. Again, it's not necessarily a lock. We've seen one major tournament with the Unimind dominate, partially because of numbers. I played 4 out of 4 rounds against Unimind, and there could be any number of things we still haven't seen yet or still haven't planned out yet, or there are some things that do compete but could lose to certain dice rolls. That's what the matter of things is at this point, as far as the constructed metagame is. And for a lot of the constructed WKOs, Harley won't be around. Harley won't be legal until like the 3rd week of November, if I remember correctly, or like whatever week is the week after it releases. So, and by then most of them have shifted over to the sealed. So it's tough. And if you're planning on going to a constructed WKO, I just filmed an episode on talking about the current state of the game. And part of that is if you're planning on not playing the Unimind, get a Unimind and start practicing against it, or get some kind of semblance of the ability to play against it. Be it like have the paper, have the HC realms, whatever you can to practice against it, because I guarantee you will play against it, and you have to be ready to deal with it. And I can't stress enough, Bifrost and Captain the Ameridroid. That can help in a long run or in a pinch. Free damage is free, man. That's all I'm saying. So those are all my ideas. Amber, do you have anything to add to that? Because I know I don't know if you've put any thought into the matter at this point.
No, this is the kind of meta that I just kind of take a step back from and not participate in. I'm very thankful that the 2 WKOs I will be able to get out to will be sealed, which I'm much, much more comfortable with. I know that a lot of the venues went to constructed because any of the ones that are earlier in the month wouldn't have a chance to do Harley sealed.
Yep.
Which left them with essentially Thor, but Thor sold out. So it's not something, unless they've been hoarding Thor specifically to have a WKO, you're not going to be able to get Thor. So you have to go back, and one of the stipulations in having sealed is that you have to have enough product for everybody to be doing the same set. So far enough back, like I know I was talking with one player who said his venue switched to constructed because the only thing they would have been able to do sealed in would have been Avengers Defenders War.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a good set for sealed, don't get me wrong, but I think you do lose people who don't want more of that stuff.
Exactly. Like that is a set that is like going on 6 months old, and although that doesn't sound like a long time, when it comes to this particular game, trying to play sealed on a 6-month-old set is not it's not what's going to drive people to your venue.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I've played enough sealed of that set at this point. Our extras, astronomically ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anybody want some commons and uncommons from Avengers Defenders War?
It's kind of like how we had to do the Uncanny X-Men, though, the year that it came out, we had our like pre-release sealed event, and then Canadian Nationals, Worlds, Team Worlds, everything was done using Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh gosh. Yeah, it actually got to the point where when we went to Worlds this year, both of us participated in Team Worlds, and we essentially walked away from figures because we had played and opened so much of that set that we didn't want to be bringing figures home afterwards. It actually got to the point where a bunch of people were jumping into Joker's Wild Battle Royales just to not have to play with Avengers Defenders War anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes down to the constructed, we saw some interesting things come up at Rocktober, but I mean, none of them could get through the slog that was Unimind. And within like the top 32, there were 19 of them. In the top 8, there were 6. So by the time that we got to the top 8, like that 19 went from an okay number, like a little more than half, to completely dominating the field.
Yeah, it was. And we said top 8 was 6. Top 4 consisted of 100% not only Unimind, but Nighthawk Prime, which people brought to deal with Uniminds. So, yeah. I do like the idea, though, or somebody, I think it was Chris, did a quick count for us of the number of Carnages in the top 32. There's 25 Carnages in the top 32. Not on 25 different teams, though.
Yes, that was one thing I ran around looking at Carnages, and I think there was one particular game where there were 4 Carnages on the board between the 2 players, and I'm pretty sure one of the players only had one of the Carnages.
And from our Patron Discord, we just had Clix actually ask a question as well, and it's whether or not we know why they pushed back Harley Quinn's set. It was a hurricane. One of the hurricanes caused a delay in the shipments because shipments come from that side of the world over to our side of the world, and somewhere in the ocean there, a lot of wind started blowing, so they decided to hold off the shipment for a certain period of time in order to not have it at the bottom of the ocean.
We've had similar delays in the past due to inclement weather. We had one really bad winter where a set got pushed back because they couldn't get things through the snow and stuff.
That was the strike.
Oh, that was the strike.
That was the strike. That was the year of Trinity War, and they had the strike over at the loading docks.
Yes.
And because of the strike or the work stoppage, nobody was taking things off of the ships, so the ships were sitting there with full containers. And there was actually some ships floating in the middle of the harbor that still waiting to get, like, their engines were off and sitting anchored waiting to get the stuff loaded out, and because of the work stoppage, nothing was getting unloaded. It was actually a big issue for a lot of distributors that year for the Christmas, I remember. So
yeah, that was a big one that year.
Yeah, so these kinds of things happen. Our patience is required sometimes. I think Trinity War was supposed to come out in November of the year before it came out, and it ended up coming out the February because of the work stoppage. It was it got really pushed back.
Yeah. And that was also the era where like almost every single set that particular year got pushed back for some reason or other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that started the like mentality that we'd never get a set on time.
Well, I mean, there was a long time where a lot of people were blaming WizKids, and it was hard to say whether or not we could blame WizKids. In a lot of these cases, you can't.
No.
There was a train accident that delayed Amazing Spider-Man. There's a hurricane this year that delayed Harley Clix. They didn't cause the strike over the loading docks on the coast there. So there's any number of things that are going to cause certain delays, and this happens when as a result of things not being made. They're being made offshore, and I hate to say it, this is what keeps the product as cheap as it is for us, because this is probably one of the least expensive miniature games I've ever been a part of. I've been a part of quite a few miniature games too. As far as baseline cost, when it comes down to it, the long-term cost, this one costs probably the most of any miniature game. Yeah. But short-term, if I want to collect the set, it's probably like, because of the existence of the secondary market, it will up the prices. But getting the packs individually, it's a little bit lower. I used to play Warhammer, so that's kind of my baseline. I've heard of cheaper ones, like War Machine, I think, is cheaper, and there was another one while I was out there. But honestly, I stopped doing miniature games other than HeroClix, to be brutally honest. And this and Magic are the only collectible games I engage in. Magic is cheap. HeroClix is reasonable because I don't have to keep buying in the level that you'd have to keep buying in Magic to stay competitive. It is what it is. So no beef from my end, to say the least. All right, so we can open the floor back up to Chad.
So with WizKids going to PAX, do you think they're going to start doing more tournaments? And if so, how do you think that's going to affect things?
This is a thing that WizKids has had to do for years now, and it's get more tournaments run by them. And it's been a bit of a slow burn for them getting up there. We as players have really enjoyed The Rock, and I hope it can still coexist in a world with WizKids' own tournaments, and I hope that they can maintain sameness as far as functionality. Unfortunately, part of that is the rock maps, and I have no beef with them, essentially, but that is a big difference maker as far as the two types of tournaments. Now, that said, I think WizKids running more tournaments is better for all of us. Because the more and more tournaments that they can run, the more and more we can all go to, the more and more we can all go to, the more excitement we can get for competitive play. And the more excitement we have for competitive play, the better for the game in general. I have more to say, but I want to let Amber take the lead because I've been kind of on a train right now. So go ahead, Amber.
I'm pretty much in the same vein there, where the more chances that we get to play this game, like the happier everyone's going to be. And adding more and more, like even from looking back, see 2 years when the WKOs first started, and they were originally just like one here and one maybe over there and one maybe down there, and like they were very, very sparse.
There's a scattershot all over the place.
And then like even from then to now, like this year when we got, like you should have seen us when we got shown the map, and then the map got updated and there were 10 WKOs in Canada. We went from 1 in Canada to like 10. It was huge.
We're currently sitting at a stage right now as far as WKOs are concerned. Last year, we had to go to everyone within our area just to feel like we've given it our best shot. We have to start turning them down now.
Yeah. Like the fact that there is WKOs that I'm like, no, I don't have to go to that one. That is blowing my mind.
Yeah, I was considering at one point going to the one in Quebec. Now, not so much. There's 2 on the same weekend that we're going to. One on the 18th over at Jackson on Queen, which is in Elmsvale, and we're going to one in Toronto the next day after that. And then the weekend after that, I'm going to Whitby to Comic Book Addiction.
And these are all within like a radius of where we actually
live. Within a 2-hour drive of us.
Yeah.
If I extended it to like a 5, 6, 7-hour drive, I could go to Quebec and I could go to Eternal Games. I could probably hit Highlander Games over in Jersey. There's so many, and there's Rochester.
I was going to say, I got told to come down to Rochester. I was like,
I can throw a rock and hit a WKO, and that is not a bad thing at all. And the reason I think that's a great thing is, one, more venues are getting the chance to expose themselves to big competitive play. As well, more venues will probably see the same amount of volume they would get in relation to their area. Eternal Games might see a little bit of a dip here and there. I know a few of us from north of the border aren't going, but I know some from north of the border are still going. And the numbers they might lose from some places will switch to more locally or more coming from another venue that might be on another week. Because what happens is when we get into these seasonal events, we run with momentum as competitive players. One isn't enough. I must go to the next one, and then the next one. I didn't do well enough in these 3 guys. I got to go to another one. I won, but I got to go to another one. We're momentum based. We'll roll and kind of attract ourselves to all the local venues and try to go to as many as we possibly can, because that's the competitive edge. We just gotta go, gotta do it. Yeah. And it's a ton of fun. And that's one thing I can't stress is these events are always so much fun. Oh man, I can't stress it enough that these are going to be the biggest rooms full of HeroClix players you've ever seen in your life. And all of them are excited to play the game. All of them are enthusiastic about the game. Very few of them are jerks. And the ones that are jerks are usually easily put in their place by the overwhelming number of people who aren't jerks. So it's a very positive experience. It's a very positive thing that WizKids is now getting on board, doing their own thing. This also leads to more prizing for everybody, because WizKids, for the most part, has only been providing convention exclusives and the monthly OP kits. And they've been using convention exclusives as prizing for WKOs. Now we have WKO specific prizing, which now the prizing isn't as big, but this is a twofold situation. The not so big prizing is cheaper on the stores running the events, right? So if you've got a store running, these stores can happily run these sealed events because they're only paying $80 for the prize kit, not hundreds of dollars for the prize kit. So And you've had something to jump in there.
Yeah, also on that, with having WKO specific or the side tournament specific OP kits, actually rises the
Value.
I guess that desirability of the convention exclusives, because like when we went into Worlds this year, they had so many WKOs leading up to it, and then the Nationals leading up to it, where everybody's like, oh, well, you know what? I already have all the convention exclusives. I bought this here. I bought that there. I already have all of this. And now we can play it at Worlds because it's been out for X amount of time. It's legal to play. But now if they change or shift how the prizing is done, and we have specific WKO prizing, it draws more people back to Worlds, back to Nationals, and it also kind of cuts down on the amount of convention exclusives that are being played at these big tournaments, where we're not going to see Pim Tank everywhere because not everybody got it 3 months ago.
And there's nothing wrong with more pre-qualified players for Nationals. You know, if high-level players have already qualified through WKO, then that takes them out of the running in the qualifiers for your national event. And then you're free to qualify at a little bit more of a slightly less competitive. Don't get me wrong. There's good players who don't win these things. So be aware of that as well.
Now, all of that being said, having tournaments like this specifically at like PAX or say San Diego Comic-Con, they haven't had one there yet.
Don't run a tournament at San Diego Comic-Con ever.
This is where my train of thought is going. Like we've got PAX Unplugged is where they're having their most recent one.
Yeah,
and
that's the board game focused one.
They've had Gen Con, and I mean, Worlds is at Origins. You kind of have to pick and choose where you want to focus on these big conventions, because while WKOs are great because they're being run in venues, trying to run a big event in a convention it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you expose yourself to all of these people who wouldn't regularly see the game. They're walking by the booths. They're like, oh, what's this? They stop to look. But then you got the hardcore HeroClix players who are there to play. Then they have to pay to get into the convention. They have to pay to be there. But then all they're getting out of that particular convention is HeroClix. And more often than not, you don't want to be going to a convention just to play one game the entire time. You want to try and experience something else where you're there.
I think that was the hardest part about Origins for us, because we're big board game enthusiasts in addition to being HeroClix fans. And there are just so many board games I wanted to touch while I was there. And, you know, some Origins is before Essen, which means that's your first taste of some of the board games that might find their way to Essen. Essen being Germany, where they hold the big Spiel des Jahres, the Game of the Year competition, and where they decide which is the best game of the year. This year, I
think that's what's going on right now.
The Essen judging has already occurred, but the Essen tournament or Essen show is going on. Yeah. And actually, is it right now? Yes, it is right now.
Yeah, because
our friend Eric is down there, and I think Justin Suren said.
Yeah, Justin posted that picture of it. Look what I did, and he had set up a booth all by himself.
Yeah. He also showed a picture of his 5-hour energy drink. I think me and Justin Suren are spirit animals to each other, and we just don't realize it yet, because I'm a big Red Bull enthusiast myself. So, no. That said, now I've got way off the beaten path.
This is what we do.
Yeah. WKOs are a great thing run by stores, and stores really need to be the ones spearheading this. But having things at conventions, what that does help is it does draw the eye to it. It's like, what is this game these guys are playing? Because when they do set up at conventions, WizKids do have demo games going on at all times, and people teaching people how to play their games. I know they did it at Origins for both their board games and HeroClix, and because of this, they can teach the onlookers, collect the new players, and then if they choose to run sealed events at these, you might find a way to actually attract a brand new player into this particular event. Because some players, I remember when I went to a Grand Prix in Magic the Gathering, and a guy told me that this was his 6th game of Magic as I sat across from him in the first round. I felt really sorry for him because, you know, he didn't have a sideboard. his deck was just all over the place. I think there was like 100 cards in his deck. It was insanity. And I was just like, and I sat down and explained to him, it's like, okay, well, this is your first tournament. Now you're crazy. You're a crazy person for doing this, but here's some advice for your future and so on and so forth. The same kind of thing I would do for HeroClix. But anyway, sometimes you do attract new players in that way. And every new player in HeroClix right now is a big boon to the game. We are a game that is very small right now. Every new player counts big time. And that's it's one of the most important things is getting new players right now, because the game is picking up steam. The steam needs more coal. We need more coal to power the engine, and the engine needs to go. And the engine will go with more coal being more players. The players will create their own steam, because the heat for the game is great. We just need more players playing the game, and we need WizKids to keep a bit of an eye on the balance, because we don't want these single-figure competitive metas, because competitive games do actually help drive a certain number of players and a certain amount of finance into the game, which is both beneficial to the WizKids and stores. And that's Rudy talk right now. I got to stop watching Alpha Investments. I have learned finance from a guy who talks about Magic the Gathering finance. Actually, two guys that talk about Magic the Gathering finance, because I found out about another one who tends to dispute what he does. Anyway, I've been learning finance and how it affects both Magic the Gathering and collectible games and stores and everything like that. So, anyway. What? You want to go in financial mode and how the secondary market?
No.
Also, while I was on our big tangents there, Semper Clix asked another question regarding the Rock online tournaments. I know Aaron Cantu is the one spearheading those. I'm not 100% sure what the organization and how everything is working on in regards to that, because unfortunately, my main focus in regards to this game is maintaining enthusiasm and playing it as much as I can and helping people understand things. And what I do right now for the channel is as much as I can get done in a period of time that I have allotted right now.
Which is unfortunately why a lot of our regular shows have not been regular lately.
Yeah. Now, granted, Rocktober did take a lot out of us in October, and we're going to ramp up big time in November for you guys, because November goes into the Christmas season, and a lot of people slow down at Christmas season. We want a lot of content for you guys to watch in November and December, and January, because those are big down times. Once we get all this new stuff in, November is going to be a big month. We're going to have beginning or middle of November, we have Harley Quinn and the Gotham Girls, and at the end of November, I believe it is when we have Star Trek. Yeah,
and we should
we've had a conversation with WizKids about it.
Our WizKids stuff in.
It should come in.
Able to do our unboxing,
and we'll be able to do our unboxing and our review of it. And our review is probably the most popular portion of it, to be brutally honest. People do like. I mean, our unboxing has to follow Scott Porter. He does a great job of unboxing and giving us a good first look. I give a bit more of a direct look as far as that second video that we always put out. And so many people, when we put out that first video, first unboxing, is really just your rarity look, guys. This started as a Rock Online tournament. I just want to point that out.
This is what we did.
Anyway, and this is all explained because of what we did. Anyway, so when we get the Harley stuff in, we'll have that first unboxing. That's how you get your idea of rarity and pacing of the set. And then I will take it piece by piece and look at them. But for the love of God, you guys in the comments, I promise that second video every time. Stop asking in the comments of the first video, where are the dials and cards? I promise them every time. It's always the second video we release in relation to the release. Oh gosh, sorry. That's just my tangent on this particular subject. It's the one thing that actually bothers me. Our fans are great. They're the best. And this is just the one nitpick I have about the whole thing. And you know what? Now that I've said this, of course, what are the first 8 comments on that video? It's like, guys, where are the dials and cards? Where are the dials and cards? Where are the dials and cards? Where are the dials and cards?
God damn it, Jason. But back to the Rock Online. Right now, it's in I don't know, alpha. It hasn't even reached beta right now. They're pretty much playing through systems to find the best way to be able to do it online. I know right now the charts, yes.
Okay. Tom has given me permission to run the charts myself. I have bitten off way more than I could chew on that one. So if if I run a little late on Monday night, I'm sorry, but I can't. I'm gonna try to my best to catch up this weekend with the charts, but I also have to love my family and play HeroClix on Saturday too. And I'm so Ninja Turtled right now. I've really gotta get a.
He doesn't even know what he's saying anymore.
I gotta get pumped up for my Ninja Turtles excitement. Did anybody read issue 75? Oh my god, it's so good. So much happens. So I'm gonna be doing our tournament requires that we play from 2 universes. So I'm actually thinking of bringing 2 universes of Ninja Turtles. What are you smirking at? What's so funny?
No, we still haven't gotten a chance to talk about Rock Online.
Oh, okay, we said it's Aaron Cantu's boat. All right. Here's what I understand so far. Howard is planning it. Howard is already going forward with that planning. Howard is in charge of the rock. So Howard and Aaron are spearheading this, and it's an undertaking at best. I mean, heck, even our commentary was an undertaking as it was at Rocktober. So
one day we streamed for 14 hours straight.
2 days we streamed for 14. Actually, one day we streamed for 15 hours. The other we streamed for 14. So... Anyway, they're working on it. It's I think there's a decision making right now as far as application or if they're planning on just doing a Skype thing. The problem with the Skype thing is there's an expectation of collection on both sides of the curtain, right? And what sucks about that is if I'm using my version of your figure and I've got the handy, I'm allowed to break the back of the card rule. Yeah. Now, granted, at home I'm allowed to break the back of the card rule anyway, so I guess it's going to be assumed that the back of the card rule doesn't exist for an online environment. And then if they do happen to do this, they have to make sure it's the hardest thing to maintain. They've got to maintain a dice application at this point that is viewable by whoever is watching over the games.
I think they're using Roll20 for that.
I mean, that is what it is, right? As long as all players can look at it, that's fine. And all players also include a judge. And this is the thing. This is going to be a micromanaged tournament. These tournaments aren't going to take hours. They're not going to take a day. They're going to take months. Yeah. Like a super qualifier, online super qualifier, it's probably going to take about 3 months to get everybody's schedule organized. You know what I mean? I know for myself specifically, there's not a chance in heck I can participate in this. I cannot guarantee my schedule, and I will drive my opponents nuts trying to reschedule things. You might need almost as many judges, like half as many judges minimum as you have players, just to watch each game, right? Sometimes you have to have multiple judges on a table. They are undertaking a heck of a responsibility, and I commend them for it. And that's what we kind of have to be patient about, is they have to figure out all the logistics on this and all the infrastructure for this as well. Because when you plan something like this, everybody's like, oh, Magic the Gathering Online exists. Well, yeah, because that's an application that Magic the Gathering manages. Like Wizards of the Coast
is a game.
Takes care of that. That is their product. They do that. They're fine with that. We don't have that option as WizKids under WizKids because of the number of licensing issues. Basically, I'm going to break the world apart for everybody who doesn't understand how a licensed game works. The license that WizKids has for their game is strictly for a miniatures-based game involving superheroes, and their license probably extends specifically to the HeroClix style of game. Now, that license costs a certain amount of money on WizKids, or rather a certain amount of the money that they take in has to go to Marvel DC. This is why they start to look at things like the Undead set as eventual options. It's also why at one point they were considering Mage Knight. Both those licenses cost them nothing initially. They don't have to give up any of their fancy dough to pass that money on to somebody else. But that said, when you start getting into the world of interactive video games or interactive gaming in general, HeroClix is its own game. But it is, if you make a video game version of HeroClix, you are now making a video game requiring the license thereof of the DC and the Marvel and the so on and so forth. And then the ability to use Marvel and DC in the same product is probably the most insane thing WizKids has pulled off. I know the Versus system had that set up, and that was probably an easy sell because it was comic book. We're talking about toys expected to be on the same table as each other. forget about it. Now we got to go into the video game world. There's another license you have to get to hold on, or you have to outbid companies like Sega or Activision or any other video game company, Square Enix even, that might have a license to these products. So the long and the short of it is, this is an impossible undertaking for, like, they tried a video game version of WizKids, but it was limited in the number of figures they could use. The licenses were so very limited, and the ability to use it was very, very tight and restrictive, and there's nothing they had any handle on. And then, you know, their staff got cut to a micro version of what they should have for a game that's grown to the size that it is. And they're still managing fairly well with, you know, for all our complaints. The company the size of WizKids right now is it's managing to stay pretty relevant and pretty good on a scale what would be considered a skeleton crew for any other game of the size of it. So all my power to them. And so anyway, that's why we don't have a digital version of HeroClix, and that's why the online undertaking is such a big thing, because we're still required to some degree to either use the physical product or find a digital alternative that won't be viewed outside, that won't have any of the products on display, and it won't have any of the pictures broadcast out to the world. It's licenses suck, guys.
That actually reminds me of the Marvel trading card game for the DS.
For the DS, you mean
that
the
Versus.
the Marvel version of Versus system that only allowed you to use Marvel versions of it. It was a great rendition of the game itself.
Yeah.
It was just very limited in the product that we were allowed. And this is a game on table. I'm allowed to use Marvel and DC. The backs of the cards are all the same. But the second they put it into a video game, that's a different license. Marvel okayed it. DC didn't. Sorry, guys. Can't do it. Video game licenses are a nightmare.
And they couldn't even call it the Versus system.
No. It's like you can't link it to that either.
Yeah.
What?
Like, it was all the same art, and I'm pretty sure it had like the Versus system symbol on all of the stuff.
Yep.
It couldn't be called that because as a Versus system game, that includes the DC, and because this wasn't DC, it couldn't, like, if this, in regards to what we're talking about here, if say Marvel did allow it, if they were allowed, and you couldn't get DC, or even if Nickelodeon allowed it, and we
Marvel
only
and DC
had Ninja Turtles, we couldn't even call it HeroClix because HeroClix encompass DC and Marvel and Nickelodeon and everything else under the umbrella.
Nickelodeon click game.
It would be HeroClix, but we wouldn't be allowed to call it that because only one company allowed their license to be used.
It would be like TMT Strategy or something.
Yeah.
So, or TMT Tactics, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
which, to be honest, is a game I totally want to play now.
Yeah. Dude, TMNT Tactics, I'm in. Whoever listened to Ubisoft, you're the guys in charge of the video game license of Ninja Turtles now, so longer Konami. You do what we just said, man. I know somebody from Ubisoft is listening. I have friends. All right. Chad, floor is open to you again.
The new Star Trek. You think it's going to go straight golden, or are we going to be able to actually play it?
Confirmed it's going to be modern legal.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that will not cross over is the ships. The ships will be specifically in Star Trek Tactics, which will be a different game, but is actually using HeroClix rules now. If you've seen any of the ships previewed, like, the cards are done up exactly like HeroClix card. It's all under the new wording of the new rules. But they've already put up a sticky note on their on the win saying that the ships are not allowed in any format unless that format
even
specifically
Golden
allows
Age.
them. Yeah, they're not even Golden Age. It's just, this is a different game. Do not use these ships.
That just happens to use the same rules and the same numbers and the same powers and the same. But it's not HeroClix.
But any of the figures and the aliens and anything that we're gonna get like that, tribbles, those will be modern age. Those you can put right in with the rest of your HeroClix, which is gonna be fantastic because I kind of want to play a team of Mousers and Tribbles now.
Mousers and Tribbles. Oh my. Oh my. With
Oh
a Sulu.
my.
Oh my god. Mousers, Tribbles, and Sulus.
Oh my.
Oh my. Oh my goodness.
Yay. So yes, you'll be able to do Star Trek. It will be modern. Who knows what we're even gonna get out of that power-wise when it comes down to it. So but yeah, they said right away that getting this license back, that they're like, yes, we're gonna make this modern. So that I think it's something they've been really gearing towards ever since Yu-Gi-Oh was last put out, and Yu-Gi-Oh went straight golden, and they did the Millennial Puzzle Tournament, where people were coming out and playing because it was a tournament, but then after that, nobody really cared about Yu-Gi-Oh.
This is it. Then it was the only reason we purchased Yu-Gi-Oh was to be able to play in these things.
Yeah,
and
because
give a
they
crap.
did like a 6-month storyline OP kit thing where you built a resource like you did any of the other OP kit ones, or any of the other storyline ones, and then like we had one specific player, like at our own personal venue, we had one specific player who is a Yu-Gi-Oh player and bought Yu-Gi-Oh Clix to learn to play HeroClix with us when everybody was playing Yu-Gi-Oh. And now it's the only thing that he plays. So every now and then when we have a Golden Age event, he'll come in and play with his Yu-Gi-Oh Clix. But other than that, like all of our regular players that played in the event stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh Clix. And then we had one player that was there as a Yu-Gi-Oh player and stopped playing HeroClix. So I think they kind of learned from that to either, because from that license we then went to Ninja Turtles and everybody kind of ate that up. But one of the things they did was as soon as Ninja Turtles launched, it was Modern Age.
Yeah, they announced actually prior when they made the announcement initially. Scott D'Agostino was walking around Worlds with a sign. And my buddy sent me a picture of him wearing the sign that said, "Yes, you made an agreement with the Nickelodeon. This includes a Ninja Turtles HeroClix, and these Ninja Turtles HeroClix will be Modern Age." They stressed it so much, and cheers went amongst the world, including Mr. Jason Collins, who was a big fan of the Ninja Turtles. And man, it was great times. But that, like Amber said, modern makes the set last. Modern makes the game last. Makes the players last. If Yu-Gi-Oh had been a Modern Age set, first of all, we'd have to be dealing with morphing draw strategies. But beyond that, let's get out of the crazy. We'd have a bunch of players who'd actually be allowed to play competitively with a bunch of stuff that was made. But then, because the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff was made with the way it was, and with the agreements that they were made, probably to get the cheapest possible way of agreeing to them, they were made with no balance in mind and everything like that. And that's another thing about things like the Pacific Rim and things like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is think of how cool it would be to use these things in Modern in a balanced game. Scunner is a 600-point character. Who cares? It doesn't have to be balanced. It's Pacific Rim. You're never going to see it in the game because WizKids is actually basically, and I don't fault them for this because they could have gone in two directions with this, and they went the direction they were basically forced to go. They could have turned Golden Age into the other competitive format. I think they now have to come up with their own other competitive format, but the Golden Age has basically become its dumping ground. Also, while I'm in the middle of this, Nathaniel, elaborate on your question a little specifically. What? Because I don't know what Crown copyright specifically is. Kind of roughly know copyright and trademark law at a high level. I don't understand what Crown copyright and any attempts to change it are. Carrying on. So as far as, making things modern all the time, it's really beneficial to the game because, as an example that Amber had, is these guys got into the Yu-Gi-Oh! HeroClix, and they strictly owned Yu-Gi-Oh! HeroClix. Next week, we're having a Modern tournament. Right? You see the problem they run into, and it's it was a cool event, and for one, I didn't want to lose out on a week of HeroClix every month. I needed my Clix fix because oh my gosh, at that time I had like the worst job and the worst life.
And at the time we had steady babysitters, and we were allowed to go out every week. And goddamn, were we going out every week?
Yeah. Now, granted, I used the bare minimum number of Yu-Gi-Oh Clix for my teams and built other stuff with it, and but. All right, cool. So because I have no thoughts on the matter, I guess Nathaniel was happy with that. Yeah. So excited for Star Trek, excited for Klingons, excited for Tribbles. Oh my! And Mr. Sulu.
That's one of those things where I grew up on Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I didn't watch any of the original series, so there's gonna be a bunch of stuff that come out of this that I don't know what it is at all.
Yes, you will. Captain Kirk.
Well, okay, I know Kirk. I know the main
Bones.
crew.
What else are they gonna make? They're gonna make a red shirt.
They're making a 5-figure booster set. There's gonna be 60 figures. It's not gonna be the main. It's not necessarily a
60-figure set. It's more along the lines of probably what we got out of What If and Elseworlds.
Okay, still, that's 50 figures that you have to fill. That's not just going to be 10 different versions of the 6 main characters.
Did you see Elseworlds and What If? Look, think of how many possible versions of triples we might be able to get. Think of how many different Klingons we can get.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we've seen at least like 6 figures that are not the main 6 characters.
So a couple generic aliens. And then
I'm this close to punching him right now.
There'll be a Kirk, and there'll be a Kirk with a red shirt, but Kirk will be Kirk, and then the red shirt will be the red shirt with very low stats and very terrible powers. Then we'll have Spock. Then we'll have another red shirt, and guess what? It's going to be another character with terrible powers, and so on and so forth. This is how they do it.
Now you're just making me want to make an entire team of red shirts and see how many games I lose.
I want to see how many of your characters make it out. That's what, yeah.
Personal win condition. The red shirt lived.
You lost because all of my red shirt. I got one red shirt alive.
There's a webcomic that I saw the other day, and it was like this little kid at school, and then these little like obvious Trekkie kids came up to him, and they're like, "Hey kid, you want to come play with us?" And his dad's like, "No, no son," and pulls him away because his son was wearing a red shirt.
And Nathaniel is, of course, flexing his Trek knowledge in the Discord, talking about Trelane, Core, Koloth, and the crew. But he also wants a team of nothing but red shirts. All right, let's get back to Mr. Chad.
So with that going to be modern legal, I'm kind of the opinion too many sets too fast. I don't feel like I can really enjoy any of them at this point. What do you guys think?
I don't think it was supposed to be this fast. First of all, because the delay on Harley Quinn put it back from October to November. We had all of October basically off, with the exception of Ragnarok. And I'm starting to get to that point where movie sets are cool for bringing a new player into the game, but they're not necessarily for me. It's generally pretty easy for me to get my hands on what I want as far as a movie set is concerned, and what I may or may not need. But there are a lot of sets coming out, but I think if we actually look at the grand scale of it, it's probably pretty close to any number of years that we've had. As well, the faster sets start to come out, the more gets rotated in each rotation, which shakes up the game a little bit more generally. Okay, but I'm also making excuses for myself, you see. In the big scale of it, I don't feel like it's any more or any less than we've had before, but what was throwing us off is the What If and Elseworld sets. When they do these anniversary sets, it's hard not to look at them as one complete set because they have half a set release date at different times. I kind of look at that as that was the version of the summer event that we got. We got it all at once. If we would have had that in like an Age of Ultron or or a Fear Itself or a Green Lantern World War Light, it would have been more and more and more and more spread out, and we would have been getting cases and boxes. And that's the thing is, we as HeroClix players, as a group of people, holy smokes, do we consume all at once. We are not like other games in the sense that, like, Magic players are still purchasing Ixalan packs, and they're still playing Draft and Sealed of that stuff. And they're still collecting because there's hundreds and hundreds of cards in each of their sets. Now, granted, they have quarterly releases. They're released less often than us, but there's more to collect. So they spend more time buying. And then as HeroClix players, we consume so quickly that, you know, stores themselves, they don't want to hold the stuff on the product because we're buying it in such large quantities all at once. So they put less on the shelves. What that means is WizKids has to offset this by putting more new, enticing product for us to want to buy. And that's what I've observed as HeroClix, as a HeroClix consumer versus a Magic consumer. And I am both. Now, my Magic is a very limited, very strict purchasing regime. In fact, I'm behind on Ixalan as a purchasing set. I usually go to a pre-release, buy a bundle, buy a box, and that's what I get of Magic. That's generally what I get. In HeroClix, I get a case and a half because we get that that brick from WizKids often, and we get the whole case as well from WizKids. And that is our purchasing for the set, and then we buy individual things and collect and trade and do all of our stuff for that. So it's because it's such an all at once, WizKids has to react. Now, again, this is always offset. If you go back to when 5 years ago, 10th anniversary came out, we all had the same problem. Holy smokes, too much came out. Oh my gosh, there's so much to get. What, Fear Itself 2? You know what I mean? We didn't just have the 10th anniversary. We had the Fear Itself around the corner. Or wait, no, 10th anniversary was the year of Infinity Gauntlet, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. But we had the Infinity Gauntlet, and very close after the Infinity Gauntlet, we had the Batman event. So it's how we get the product is really what's kind of throwing us off. And because we didn't have a summer event to release one of these products, like we had with Civil War was the last one. Civil War was the last one, where we got one pack each. Like, we didn't get as much of Civil War, and we weren't really overwhelmed because we get our pack, and then we'd have our other sets still to spend time on. I feel like Elseworlds and What If were idealized as something like War of Light, something like Age of Ultron. And because of the way Civil War went, they went, might not be such a good idea anymore. Without realizing that Civil War was its own mistake for its own reasons. I think Age of Ultron was the perfect middle ground. Age of Ultron was not too much power in the set. Like War of Light was a superpower set. Age of Ultron was mediocre at best. It did have the Ultrons themselves, but not that big an issue because they needed to be in that set, right? The set itself balanced itself out, was really strong in its sealed environment and not bad outside. It also had its own ID cards and its own cool stuff. And then the prizing at the end of it, ended up partially dominating the meta game for a certain degree. Long story short is that because we don't have the spread out release, we don't have the time to kind of take it all in this case. So yes, it is a lot all at once, but it's because certain amounts should have been spread out and they weren't. That makes sense. I took the longest. I don't know if Chad's had the wonder of being a part of a Patron Hangout, but you give me an inch, and I take the mile, and then the mile after that, and the mile after that, and the mile after that. Amber, any thoughts on that?
All right, so here's my view on this. Now, this year aside, as we've already touched on this being the anniversary year and the What If Elseworlds kerfuffle, as that would have typically been a storyline event. Our oversaturation of sets is almost directly correlated to the superhero boom in the movie industry. Because if you remove almost every movie set, every mini set, if you focus on just the 5-figure booster sets, we're getting one once every 2 months. And then we already have the period where December and January never get releases because that is a time off for them. And over the summer, we don't usually get a release it flips between like June and July because it'll either be like a storyline event or Yeah, it's usually a storyline event. Like I said, it got mixed up this year with it being the Elseworld, the anniversary stuff. Now, we're also getting thrown in there the fact that we're having new properties. So Ninja Turtles has added to that, and this year Star Trek is added to that. But if you... Yeah, obviously this year doesn't work for me because we know that this year got oversaturated. We've already dealt with that. But yeah, that's one of those things, is that ever since the MCU, the DCEU, once those started coming out with the fact that now every single month, if we're not getting a 5-figure booster, we're getting a movie set because there's a movie out every 3 months, it's getting a little crazy with the fact that if Thor Ragnarok didn't come out, it would have been August for Thor and then November for Harley. Like, we actually would have had September and November, or September and October off. Now, that wouldn't have been. It would have been it would have been August, September off, and then October, and then December and January off. If we don't include the movie set Thor Ragnarok, the side set Undead with a new property, and the Star Trek with a new property. So it's one of those things where these smaller sets don't actually get bought up as much as the bigger sets do.
As far as big
and you're
sets,
like, I'm going to throw your entire theory out the window.
No. There are more big sets this year than there were last year. That's considering specifically 5-figure sets. Now, again, like I mentioned, Civil War was last year, so that's spread out across the year. That was one set that was spread out. In addition to which, 2 of those sets that were coming out are also 3 of these sets that are coming out at 5-figure boosters are very small sets. What if Elseworlds and Star Trek are all very small sets in comparison to what we normally get? Mighty Thor was massive, by the way. I looked at the HC Realms count is 117.
But that also includes all the weapons.
Yeah. You know what? When it comes down to the grander scheme of the game, the weapons are...
are a very viable thing to add in.
Now, with that said, we still have the same number of Marvel and DC products. But we only had one Ninja Turtle set. We had one Undead set. And we got the Star Trek set. All adding to, oh my gosh, what's going on? There's so many sets. The number of small sets exploded. Yeah. It's a massive number. Next year, it's going to be probably less jarring on us to a certain degree. For one, I think they're going to settle out the small sets to a smaller number of them each year, hopefully. I still think we're going to see the same number of Marvel and DC stuff. But now we also have to factor in that there is going to be like a Star Trek The Next Generation set to some degree, and so on and so forth. So long and the short of it is, yeah, there's more this year, but grand scheme, the big sets, there's only 2 more big sets this year, but there's a lot fewer, not as many small figure sets as, well, there's just as many actually, but we've also added the Undead into the mix and Star Trek into the mix. So it's not HeroClix saturation as it is licensed saturation. And WizKids, I feel, and this is something for the longevity of the game, if we want to continue playing this game, they need to keep securing licenses, because at any second, DC or Marvel can turn around and go, don't want it anymore. And then we can lose HeroClix altogether if that's the case. Or we can get this oversaturation of licenses for a little bit. It settles out, and if Marvel and DC or Marvel or DC just happen to, I'm not really in on it anymore. Have a good day. We still got more Ninja Turtle stuff to pull out, right? Yeah, cool. All right, let's get some more of that comic stuff in there. Let's do a couple reprints. Yeah, cool. And that could be what we could be seeing a preparation for, because every so often they have to renegotiate these licenses back to how copyright and licensing happens. This is a long-term thing. They have to renegotiate these licenses, and I mean, who knows how these negotiation conversations are going? They might not be going well at all. They could be getting harder and harder and more expensive. They might not actually be feasible. And my understanding is that Marvel and DC lately have been more along the lines of, are we still being able to count money for it? All right, cool. But if we see some kind of a bomb of a DC movie, or Marvel starts to see a trepidation of what's going on, we might who knows what could happen to these licenses. So I think for a little bit, it's going to be okay to get a little bit of oversaturation if WizKids is able to defend. Because one of the things is I've been playing the game for all of this time, and the comics just happened to be the pretty picture that got me into it. I think I'm stuck on the game. And as long as HeroClix the game exists, I think I'll still be playing, even if I'm playing with Undead or Mage Knight or Star Trek or whatever. Hopefully more Ninja Turtles forever. Or heck, My Little Pony, whatever keeps the game alive, right? And it just, I think that's a level of patience we need to take for now. But 2 sets extra doesn't feel as bad when you actually say it out loud. You know what I mean? And it's just been where I think timing has been a big factor. There have been big lulls where it's like, we're not buying anything, we're not buying anything, we're not buying anything, buying everything, not buying anything, we're not buying anything, buying everything. So we'll see.
I had 2 thoughts on that. One of them was just on that last one, is that also trying to keep the interest, where for us it feels overwhelming, where it's like, oh my gosh, every other month I'm shelling out X amount of dollars for HeroClix. But if we weren't, would we still be playing the game? And as players, yeah, gosh, we're still going to be playing the game. But as a business, they're like, oh my gosh, if we're not selling product, we're not, like, because once a set is out, it's out and then it's done. They're not seeing any more money. Whether or not we play that for the next 6 to 8 months, they're not seeing any more money from us. So they've got to keep their business going. Other note that I wanted to make on that, we were talking about the licenses. Any of us that have followed the movie verse in the licensings, any of us know the whole kerfuffle with Fox and Marvel. And the reason why we now have a Daredevil TV show was because Fox lost their license because they didn't make a Daredevil movie in time to keep the license. Because part of the license agreement was that you had to make a movie every X amount of years to keep that license. There's a very good chance that WizKids has a very similar license agreement where they have to use X number of characters or X license every few months to be able to keep that license with Marvel and DC.
I'm sorry, I'm just peeking over at the chat, guys. If you're watching in the chat and not, chatting with us from the Discord, we're probably not going to be answering your questions. This is reserved for our patrons. But I might take some time offline after the show to kind of address your questions directly. So keep asking them in there. But like I said, the on-air portion of this is reserved for our patrons, who we do love a lot. I also want to big a shout out to Mr. Nathaniel. I also used to play the Next Generation CCG. I had a great Borg deck. It was a lot of fun. My opponent, like watching my opponents dodge me, was a ton of fun. But I also really love to play the Klingons. Surprise, surprise, right? they're a Amber they were a swarm aggression strategy.
Of course enough. They were. Jason playing Swarm? Unheard of.
Look, all their ships needed 1 pilot. They didn't even have to be a captain pilot. It could just be any pilot. easy to run, and you could just demolish everybody's shields because their attacks were ridiculously high.
You're a Zerg player, aren't you?
You know, my StarCraft story is this, Amber. I like playing the Zerg. I really want to be good at them. I hate being as good at the... oh, yeah, I forgot about the Hirogen. Voyager set came out later in the game. I want to be good with the Zerg. I'm better with the Protoss, and I just can't make heads or tails of the Terran. Semper Clix has another one, or an observation. They should make a War of Light gravity feed of all the undiscovered lanterns that can pair off with the older ones for Golden Age matchups. If all that happened, I would think Indies would expand real wide. I think going back to our thing, it's straight to Golden. I guess if it paired with Golden, not so bad. Had an extra effect that happened to have only a character that was in Golden. They've been doing that lots.
True.
Can't wait to use my Swamp Thing ID card. All right, let's open the floor to Chad again.
I am out of questions at this point.
Uh-oh. We're supposed to buy time for Michael.
We can vamp. We can vamp. Let's vamp.
Vamp, Amber.
Nathaniel, Semper, give us questions.
Get on the show. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can get in touch with them.
Yeah, so sorry, what Semper was saying, the two little messages that he meant there were actually separate from each other, and that the expanding, what he was mentioning with the expanding indies would be if they lost the Marvel DC license, that they would try to secure more indie stuff.
Oh. Well, I mean, that's what they're trying to do right now. Is kind of what the point I was making is, you know, that this is the initial expansion is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they should do is start picking off all these guys who've had convert. Because if you look at what's come out, all right, conspiracy theory, ready? Oh my God, I've been watching Rudy too much. Okay, so we got Ninja Turtles, right? But around the time we got the Ninja Turtle set, what was happening in the summer of crossovers? But Batman and the Ninja Turtles, see?
Okay.
Now, not too long ago, or very recently, we've had the Star Trek and the Green Lantern crossover. Do you know what else we've recently had crossover with the Green Lantern? Planet of the Apes. Calling it now. Planet of the Apes Hero Clix.
You know what also is currently crossing over with DC is other WB licenses. So a lot of Looney Tunes characters have crossed over into DC. There is an entire series of comics that is Scooby-Doo teaming up with DC heroes. And there's a mini series that I will be collecting right now, which is Betty and Veronica with Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn.
Do you know what license IDW also has? And I believe they're a Nickelodeon company. Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Now, for any of you guys that actually played horror Clix, they tried really hard to get the Ghostbusters license, and they couldn't. So we got
Ghost Hunters.
Ghostbusters.
Ghost Hunters and Ghost Catchers.
I'm putting it in quotations. Ghostbusters Clix, who were named Ghost Hunters. They had the full-on brown bodysuits and the proton packs.
No, they didn't have the proton packs. What they had were outfits based on the original concept art of the original Ghostbusters movie.
It's like how they had the what was it? The vampire hunter that wasn't the vampire.
Wasn't Buffy?
It wasn't Buffy.
This is not Buffy.
Vampire Slayer.
It was a lady vampire slayer in a very short skirt,
and she was brunette instead of blonde.
Was Buffy blonde? I guess a couple seasons she was blonde.
Mm.
I wonder if it was anything like the Battlestar Galactica, where Trisha Helfer, or bleaching of her hair, actually started to cause clumps of her hair to fall out.
I don't know. For so many times that I've seen Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's been like strawberry blonde at most.
Oh, William Dickey, Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters comes out next week. not in December.
Oh my God! There's so many trips to the comic store.
Basically, it should be a weekly trip, Amber.
I know. I know.
I've got it set up that way. It's just how many books you got to collect them.
This is just something.
It's just a matter of whether I hope it's weekly, like the Dimension X book was very recently for Ninja Turtles. That was such a good series. Oh my gosh, collecting all the witnesses for what happened in issue 75, which was so good.
So we kind of answered the question, but Nathaniel does ask, what other non-Marvel DC sets would you like?
Well, we started answering the question. Yes. I can keep going if you'd like. Because as much as I laugh at people when they say it, Transformers.
You know what? There was someone that had actually made a mocked Transformers HeroClix set and like made custom figures and stuff, custom boosters, and shipped it over to the guys at Indomitable. And they had a story arc using this person's custom Transformer Clix.
That's interesting. I feel like it would be an entire set of shifting focus.
Yeah.
It would be Optimus Prime car, Optimus Prime truck, Optimus Prime gorilla. Wait, what? You
know what? That's something that we haven't had. Now that we've gotten into this shifting focus, we have not had a shifting focus Beast Boy yet. That is something that needs to happen.
Well, Beast Boy hasn't come out since we've got the shifting focus.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
we
easy.
need a shifting focus.
We also have a Teen Titans live action series like around the corner. Give them time.
That's going to be interesting just based on the casting they've done so far.
But understand, again, back to conspiracy hat mode. This is how Warner Brothers works. Oh my gosh, there's a Teen Titans TV show coming up. It's been a while since we've had a Teen Titans set, hasn't it? We also had a trickling of Teen Titans in the Wonder Woman set.
That's true. That's true. And they actually worked on, at least a couple of them worked on Teen Titan keyword stuff, if I remember correctly.
So okay, but as far as non-comic things, what else can we do? Well, Pacific Rim 2 is coming out, and even though the trailer looks absolutely abysmal, I guess I would play with the HeroClix. I'm still gonna watch the movie, but I swear to God, that movie better be better than that trailer, man. That trailer was so bad.
So on a side note, whoever took over WizKid's Twitter has been doing a great job so far, and has actually been really just interacting with people, and it's been fantastic. On that note, though, as soon as the trailer dropped, a bunch of people asked for Pacific Rim 2, and they said they don't have the license right now. They could get it. It's something they want to do, but at the moment, they do not still have the license.
Sounds like it's going to be in NECA's hand in that case. Because NECA also had the action figure line. So when back to license talk with Jason Collins.
But then also, this sequel is not being done by Guillermo del Toro, so with it, it could be a different
studio.
Different people in charge.
Studio rights kind of supersede. He was the director, not necessarily producer.
Well, but he was the creator, producer. It was his baby.
Yeah, he sold it.
Yeah.
He put it up for adoption, and he gave it to abusive parents.
Tell us how you really felt about the trailer, Jason.
It took me 3 hours to decide how angry I was at that trailer, by the way. I was sitting there watching it like, I really like Pacific Rim. Do I like this? I don't think I like it. Guys, I'm sitting there at work, and it took me like 4 or 5 breaks with the guys until I was like, yeah, no, I don't like this trailer. I really hate this trailer. I'm actually angry about this trailer. And it took me that long to read. That's how seething mad I was, is it took me forever to figure out that I was angry about it.
Something for me was very unsettling watching the trailer, and I could not put my finger on it. And it finally took like going through the comment section of all places and finding someone else pinpointed what my problem was, is that the mechs don't move like mechs anymore.
Well, yeah, because they're clearly motion captured.
Yeah.
And that was something they didn't do in the first Welcome to Pacific Rim talk, also known as the Married with Clix Patron Hangout. But the first movie, they didn't they limited the mocap on the robots, and they tried to hand animate it as much as they could so that they could get that lumbering feeling of, a machine being built by people. Because
these are gigantic, like 50-story tall metal robots. They should not be moving like the comparison was that they were moving like Transformers. Now Transformers are sentient robots that can move. That makes sense. These are giant lumbering machines that are being controlled by people inside the command center that should not be able to move as fluidly as they were moving in the trailer. And that was the problem.
You know what? And I'm going to steal it right from you. Resident Evil.
Yes. Yes. Only because we have 20 years of source material.
And you get one set out of that source material.
And the thing is, we could have like a 50-figure set, and we could have every member of STARS, every member of the BSAA, and still only have, and that's still only that's 15 characters there. And then we would have the rest of the set to do all the BOWs. And then like the chases could be like the different versions of Wesker.
You're allowed to call them zombies, because not everybody has played Resident Evil and speaks in your short form.
Okay, fine. BOW stands for bioorganic weapons and includes a lot more than just zombies.
Zombies and tentacles.
Play a fucking video game.
Wow, there goes our monetization. I'm just gonna go manually turn that off instead of having YouTube robots turn it off on us.
No. It'll just go down to yellow as it's not suitable for most advertisers.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
I don't know. A bunch of your meta labs have been flagged for that.
Really? In
The
recent ones?
The last two ones.
Last two?
Yeah.
We didn't swear in the last two.
They got flagged.
Unacceptable. YouTube and your automation.
So Loki says, I don't know if you guys read it, but I'd kill for some saga Clix.
I didn't read it yet.
I read the first 2 volumes because at the time that they were released, they were having this big rush to be like, hey guys, play or read graphic novels. And then they sold a whole bunch of graphic novels for $10. And so I picked up the first 2 trades on that and haven't read past that. But funny story on that. When that first released...
Funny story is we have another patron that just walked into the room.
Yes, and I'm going to finish my story, and then Michael can ask his question. So funny story on that was that when Saga first released, and they had the first few issues out, we went to our first Canadian Nationals. And who are now friends of ours, at the time we had just met them, Asia had a like bystander token that she had made, and she had taken the top of Alex Avila off the Star Girl click and made him a representation of the babysitter, who is a ghost, and she's missing the bottom half of her body. And I thought that was fantastic. And that's probably the closest we'll ever get to Saga Clix.
It's something somebody else made. All right, cool. All right. Mike is here. Michael's always got lots of questions for us. Chad ran out, Mike, so...
Hey, everyone. Yep. Of course, I wrote them at work today, so I was running home. Glad I can keep the streak alive. Got it. Been here for everyone. Got to keep going. Alrighty. So first one off the list. Have you guys talked enough about Unimind?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the fact that I'm wearing a green shirt is triggering me on him right now. So.
Alrighty, scratch that one off the list. Next one. All right, have we talked enough about the new Harley set coming out yet?
We actually mentioned nothing about the Harley set directly.
Okay, because I was wondering about it. So since it's going to be Harley and the girls, can you speculate or at least guess at how many? What would I guess the boy to girl ratio in the set? Are they really going to go with a female heavy set, or is this going to be just more boys and just center around the sales, the title, call it Harley, and and then have a bunch of male characters?
I'm positive the girl to boy ratio is going to be higher on the girl end because we actually have a theme based around the girls in a subset of it with the bombshells alone. Then Harley and the Gotham Girls, as his comic book as it is going to be somewhat represented. I know of a couple male characters that are, I think Prometheus was one of them that was mentioned. We're going to get a Joker. Let's not kid ourselves, right? We're getting a Joker and at least a Batman of some sorts.
Batman's in the Fast Forces.
Yeah. And that means he's going to be in the set.
What looks like Vibe. I didn't actually check to see what the character was, but it looks like Vibe.
And then we can't discount whatever the chase theme is. The rumor that I heard was that the chase theme was based around the Justice League as they got the powers of the New Gods. Rumor, not confirmed. Cannot say anything about it. I don't know where this information came from or the natural source of this information. The only true information I can guarantee is that 3 figures are in there. 4 if you count John Constantine as a bunny. Right?
They also said that there was going to be a sub-theme in it that... can't want to say JSA, but it's not. There is a sub-theme, like a regular hero or a regular superhero team that is the sub-theme underneath the set. Basically, the ratio is going to be too high because there will actually be males in the set.
It is, and the Gotham Girls. Look, I'm all for the girl power set. I would love an all-ladies set. For one, that means I can get all of the bombshells. I love my pinups. What can I say? I just think they're very beautifully drawn and very well done. I have a pic, like I'm hanging right over there is Wonder Woman sitting on my wall. So
one of the things I do have to give them credit for is that the Mira that they previewed is actually Mira from later on in the series where she's wearing pants and not the original Mira where she was just wearing a bathing suit.
Yeah.
But we do know we have the 3 bombshells that were previewed. We have the Zatanna, Mira, and Batwoman.
Yep.
And we do know that we're also going to get a Superwoman. We know that we're going to get several Harleys. We saw a female Joker. I know a lot of this came from the Alliance show where they had mock-ups of the sculpts out. They didn't have the dials in them, but they had the sculpts out. And then we do have also the booster set, or the Fast Forces, which I am going to pull up.
Oh, the Furies.
Oh, are we getting the Furies?
We're getting the Furies. Granny Goodness and the Furies are going to be part of it.
I'm so excited
There's some
for
ladies
that.
there. So
I didn't know about that. That makes me like
yeah.
uber excited. I did not know about that. Talk, because I'm focused on.
Where were you? I kind of drifted while I was looking for that evidence thread there.
No, I was talking about the bombshells.
We're getting is that another mate? Whatever. I shouldn't see this. I'm not a retailer. I'm not allowed to see this. So yeah, no, it's looking pretty lady heavy. Not 100% lady. I don't. One thing, as much as I would love to see them stick to a theme in a 5-figure set, I don't think we'll ever get what we want out of them on that one. It's a distant dream for them to go 100% on a 5-figure set and commit to what they're supposed to. Even the what are the word I'm looking for? The OP kit sets, like even War of Light had some outliers in it. War of Light was probably the closest we got to a 100% on a 5-figure set focus. And
because
even
it was storyline based.
Yeah,
right?
but even
a lot
then
of the storyline based were more towards actually the theme.
But then you get into like Fear itself, where there was still some things that were Okay, there was a few. Like I just don't remember the Monkey King being a major portion of that one. I think.
So I do have it pulled up. The Harley Quinn and Gotham Girls Fast Forces will have Harley Quinn, the Joker, Batgirl, Robin, Batman, and a GCPD officer.
Hopefully, you know what? I really hope the GCPD officer is modeled after Lady the one that was dating Batwoman.
Montoya.
Oh yeah, thank you. Would be nice to get another Renee Montoya question.
It would be
too.
nice. Now I've actually seen the picture of this.
Aren't you just something special?
I am.
You're just Googling everything in the middle of the show.
I'm not Googling. I am actually going to. I'm actually going to the. So here we have. Oh, now we. I'm actually have gone to WizKid's site where the actual Harley page, and now we are seeing a Batgirl and a Catwoman bombshell, as well as a Poison Ivy and a Harley Quinn bombshell. So those are 4 bombshells that we don't have the dials for.
All the single
but
ladies.
We do know that are bombshells.
There it is.
Okay. So the Joker in the Fast Forces is the female Joker. And then the GCPD officer does look like a male. And then I guess that was the Robin that looks like Vibe?
Yeah, it's a Robin.
Okay.
That's the Robin. I love the bombshell Dyson token pack, by the way.
Yes.
And
that is gonna be fantastic.
I made a joke with Amber. I think we're going to need 10 of those.
Yeah. Everyone. Especially now that we have gotten our daughter interested in playing Hero Clix, and she is very excited for this set.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to get her a couple packs of this one. So yeah, that's all of our speculation on the set. We look forward to when we do get our stuff in. And hopefully Scott Porter starts his unboxings very shortly. Probably next week would be a good time. Scott.
Get on that, Scott.
All right. Cool. Next question there, Mike.
Alrighty. Another one I thought of, like, because the last the Joker gang one had only 2 Harleys, and they were more like defensive and support wise. Like, would you suspect that they will have a more offensive Harley in it?
I think the Harleys, design-wise, I think what we get out of Harley is she's super dodgy in combat, super wacky as far as abilities are concerned. We can count on a title character because that's kind of how title characters work. So that one's going to be all over the place and way undercosted, as title characters are. Was it only 2? I thought we had a common, uncommon, and rare Harley Quinn and Joker as well.
Yeah, there were 3 because there was the Derby one.
The roller derby Harley.
Okay.
That was a slightly more offensive. I think that's the level of offensive we can expect out of it. I haven't read the Bombshell book, so I don't know what to expect out of the Bombshell Harley. But unfortunately, on that note, I feel like that's going to be the one that's slightly overcosted, because when you look at the Bombshells, with the exception of Zatanna, even with Zatanna actually, they're all pretty high in cost for what you get for Dial, mostly because I think there's a lot of point put into that Bombshell trait.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if the Bombshell trait does go off and you happen to have a Zatanna and you're able to control where the tokens go, holy smokes.
It's very, very similar to the Amazonian traits, that the ones that from the Wonder Woman gravity feed. When you get them all on a team together and you get those tokens racked up and moving around, they can do a lot of things. Now, the Amazonian tokens were very cool in the way that they worked, where they had, like, you could remove one to get this power, but if you had one, it gave you this defensive power. So it works a little better than the Bombshell ones that we've seen so far. But if we start getting these, like, we've seen 3 out of the probably 10 Bombshells. So there could be other Bombshells, especially with Zatanna moving those tokens around, that, okay, I get that that these this trait costs that much, but also you're putting it on, like, let's say the trait in general costs 30 points. When it makes sense on a character like Zatanna, who has that ability to move them around, but if you have a smaller character that doesn't do a whole lot, like, say, Mira, who is now an extra 30 points because she has that trait to go with the other Bombshells to feed into Zatanna and the other girls, it feels a little unbalanced unless you have them all together. So, yeah, so that likely that Harley is probably going to be a little more costed, like we've seen with the Bombshells so far. But one of those things that I've always looked at it, if like, you put aside the Harley that Jake Williams made, Harley's a hard character to put into Clix, because really, what does she do?
Yeah.
Like, she has a big hammer sometimes. I'd love to see a Harley that actually controls her hyenas for once. Come on, the amount of times that we have had characters that
broke the frame rate on the camera right there,
that spawn bystanders, and we never had a Harley with her hyenas. Like, that would be the perfect Harley. That would actually make an offensive and, like, competitive, vicious Harley where you just send her hyenas out to do things. But yeah, I mean, like, she's super athletic, she's super acrobatic, and she's a little crazy, but she's not as crazy as the Joker. So you're not going to get,
PhD.
like, yeah. So, I mean, the outwit and perplex makes sense for her. The super senses makes sense for her. But it's one of those things that's I've always found really hard in playing the Arkham Asylum or the Gotham Underworld keywords, is that these characters go up against Batman, who has no powers. He can do a lot of stuff, but he has no powers. These are regular weird people going up against a regular weird bad guy or good guy. But then when you take these weird villains and throw them against gods and aliens and metahumans, they don't look all that impressive anymore. And they shouldn't, because they're just regular wackos. That's my rant. Yeah, is that, you know, Harley's just a hard character. Like, there's not much you can put on a Harley dot. I'm very interested to see in what a Harley title character will do, because she's the one that'll do wacky stuff. Almost guaranteed she's the one that'll do wacky stuff. And I would like to see a couple trait come out of Harley and Poison Ivy at some point. The bombshells are more likely to have that, but then also we have the bombshell trait that all the girls are going to have anyways, so...
they'll be extra.
Yeah.
These things, I don't know if you've noticed, they've definitely been heavy on the traits with these ladies. So
yeah. So getting some kind of attack bonus or defense bonus, like if they're adjacent to each other,
it will be
probably make sense. Yeah.
That would make them super, super competitive.
Because as much as we've had like these couple traits and stuff show up, we haven't really had one to acknowledge the fact that Harley and Poison Ivy are a couple now.
Well, it's, again, you got to understand, on WizKids' time, they're about a year behind the comic books. So if it happened last year, they're starting to design it. So,
granted.
Yeah. All right. Next up.
Alrighty, I guess this one comes from like a couple of weeks ago. I was playing against a team of the Thor Ragnarok gravity feed, and the guy I was playing against decided, he bought them all up, and he was able to make a pretty hefty team. It had the Ragnarok Hulk on it. I remember it had Odin, it had Thor, it had the Valkyrie, and I think the last one was Jeff Goldblum. And I had a pretty hard time. I was running a JLA team with the Superman and Batman as ID call-ins like that, and I wanted to know, like, Ragnarok Hulk just wrecked me, and I want to know, is there like some kind of tricks that I can, maybe, if I should see him again in a constructed thing, what kind of tricks would I be able to like kind of contain him, or what would I need to do against him?
All right, quick question before I answer it. Is this the 75-point or the 100-point Hulk?
I want to say it's a 75-point Hulk because it was, I think, a 300-point build total. So it would probably be have been.
And this is the one that could knock back into the Thor, and then the Thor could knock back into the Hulk, kind of thing.
I want to believe so. Yeah, like it.
All right. Mm-hmm. I was about to pull out my Jeff Goldblum impression for this one, but I'm not going to waste everybody's time. Oh, we spent all this time figuring out whether or not we could. We didn't think to whether or not we should, right? The Hulk as a figure from day one has had two massive weaknesses: outwit and range. He lacks both. He often lacks protection from either one in a lot of cases, because the Hulk is the definition of big, dumb, close combat. And when you do the opposite of that, smart range combat, he can't do anything about it. And that's my best suggestion. If you have a Justice League team, Superman, shoot. Green Lantern, shoot. Aim at the Hulk, make him die good. Because when somebody is showing a big goose egg for their range, and you have range, do not give them the chance, under any circumstances, to change that situation. All games, 100% of games, start at range. You as a player with a range combat-based team, or if you have the ability to use range to your advantage, make sure you maintain that advantage as much as you can, because if the Hulk bases you, the Hulk will hurt you. And then the more and more you hurt the Hulk, well, design history of the Hulk, guess what? The madder he gets, the stronger he gets. And that's always been the case. So maintain your distance, maintain your outwitting, just keep him at more than arm's length, and you'll watch every Hulk in the game crumbles. Always play to your strengths, and don't let your opponent play to theirs. And sometimes it does take 1 or 2 turns of frustration to deal with that. I got super frustrated and annoyed at a game last week where my opponent had brought a Justin Seifert and a Nimrod. Like, this guy brought a bomb to a thumbtack fight. It was ridiculous. And it was very frustrating for the first 2 turns that I had no choice but to eat all of those shots in the face. And thank goodness for some bad dice rolls on his part, because, oh my gosh, would I have been annihilated with a couple extra hits. But then I was able to manage to get my way in there. And that's one of the things. His team has to play that way. So if he's a patient player, he's just going to go forward, and you don't want to be anywhere near his forward. And ideal thinking that a lot of players in experience or looking to gain a little bit of smarts or extra skills in the game, one thing to recognize is that movement occurs not in a straight line, but in a square. So if you put a figure down on the map, and then you actually count out all the possible squares that it can occupy, even with just a sidestep, their reach is actually a little bit more flexible than we give it credit for sometimes. And that's one thing to be aware of. So, it's like, oh, the Hulk's coming straight at me, so I'm going to go left or right. Well, make sure you're going left or right outside of that big orb of movement that the Hulk will have. And then make sure that they're always trying to move their full movement to get to you, or, be aware of things. One thing that a lot of people miss is like, okay, well, he's got a 7 movement and he's got sidestep, so I can be, if you don't account for the sidestep and you only account for the 7 movement, and he bases you with the sidestep, you forgot about the sidestep. There's just actually 9 square movement on that character. And these are all the things you got to be aware of. So arm's length isn't enough. Keep it at that little bit extra, and any way you get of increasing your range and making sure he doesn't have defense powers when you do take those ranged combat shots are the important elements to helping you get through something like those Thor Ragnarok characters, because a lot of them lack range and they really should. Even the Thor, I think if this was the 75-point Thor, I think even the 75-point Thor up top, just 2 characters named Thor in the set. That's why
neither have range.
Neither of them have range. So yeah, the set lacks the Ragnarok set lacks a lot of range. So take advantage of that. But if that Grandmaster is able to get shot, I'm not sure which one you were playing against. Did it have probability control, or did it have a miasma of powers? And was he rolling a die to put a click on? Your mic's off, so.
Yeah, he was playing in the supports. He had the 4 guys, like they were all charging up like that, and he had Grandmaster in the back like that, and he was, he had Odin on there, and he was like doing the favored, of Asgard type of token too, like that. So it was just, he had Grandmaster right in the back, and I just couldn't get to him. Like I tried to target him first, like that, to if you take out the support, like that, go around all them.
Just so I understand, was it a Grandmaster? Was the Grandmaster rolling a die at the beginning of each turn?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what was the super supporting one, which means he's got all kinds of neat powers that are, well, they're neat. That's a 6 click, like depending on which click it's on, that's basically a 6. You're not killing that thing. That should actually, that specific Grandmaster should be the last thing on your mind ever, because it only takes 1 damage at a time. So you'd have to, depending on which click it is, you'd have to attack it multiple times in order to kill it. It's really not worth the effort in that case. The Hulks and the Thors are the things you just want dead. And being able to maintain the range against them. Even the Valkyrie, I think, has a 0 range. Both of them, I think, have 0 range as well, and are basically close combat based. So thanks, HC Realms, for this one. Sorry, yeah, so that one has the 18 defense and defend, and the other one has 18 defense with toughness. So depending on which one you're up against, it's just Valkyries go squish, do damage to the Hulks and Thors, and just keep them at arm's length. That Grandmaster in the end is just not, he's not supporty enough to be a threat worth worrying about, and he's also way too much effort to put into in order to get rid of. So focus on the actual threats. As good as the Grandmaster is at supporting his team, he's not killable. And not worth the effort, really, for the most part.
It's the area of, what did you call it?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, and I've had a bit of beer, so give me a second. The area
Of disinterest?
Disinterest, that's what it is. The Grandmaster is your area of disinterest. So
he takes too much focus to kill.
Yeah.
Because he only takes 1 damage at a time. That putting all your focus on him, you'll end up being killed by the rest of the turn. And he creates an area of disinterest of either that character takes too much effort to kill, or is just, what was the other side? It's just that it takes too much effort to kill on that one. For this, and also just because of the way that the game now functions with slightly changed rules, if he does get in your face, with like a Justice League team, you've got, say, like Superman and Wonder Woman. I'm sure you had a Wonder Woman on your team. With super strength now grants knockback. So he's not a giant. He can get knocked back. So don't discount Force Blast or knockback from super strength, or even TK possibly from a Green Lantern, depending on what Green Lantern you're playing. He has a harder time getting back to you. If you can just throw him away from you, that helps keeping him at that range where, like you're saying, where against a Hulk, against all of these close combat guys, you want to be playing a ranged game against them. So there's a bunch of ways now to actually, I mean, before it was pretty much just sidestep and hoping you broke away from them, where now you just Force Blast them or knock them back or TK them away, and keeping that down, because he doesn't have that particularly high of a defense. Like, his first click is 17. He gets 18 most of his clicks, and then he ends with 17 again. Yeah, that's not too bad.
Are we really at an era where 18 defense isn't that high?
Yeah. It has come to that. It has now come to that where 18 defense is like, that's an 18 defense. Whatever. I have an 11 attack. I just need a 7. That's an average roll. That is our world now.
This is the world of HeroClix that we live.
But yeah, the Justice League now, I didn't know the makeup of your team, but the Justice League, between the typical Justice League type characters, there's enough in there with the powers that you can probably find a good way, should you find yourself going up against that particular match again, to keep those characters away from you, get them away from you if they do get to you, and focus on taking them out rather than taking out certain support characters that are not easy to take out.
And just to quickly clarify something I mentioned earlier is that, Loki the Trickster wanted to point out that the Grandmaster only takes 1 damage at a time at range. And a reason I just kind of ignored the fact that doing the damage to him in close combat works is that the strategy we're attempting to maintain is to maintain a range. And that by maintaining a range, we want to create our own area of disinterest on that character, but we also take away the strength of his team. If you overstretch in close combat that character who's supporting his team and staying close to his team, you expose yourself to what your opponent is trying to do, and you've just literally fed your team to your opponent in the position that they want to be in. So it's kind of the long story. Like, I will skip those extra little details based on the sole fact that I don't want to have to be dealing with that.
I mean, that being said, in a very specific situation, if you say have the Dark Knight Superman as your call-in, charging to him, maybe, you never know.
Again, you charge and you expose him to
But then you pull your character back.
There's a number of things.
Superman goes away.
You seem to assume that Justice League has a lot more tricks than it actually has.
Yes.
just making sure we're on the same page here. All right. Next question, Mr. Mike.
All right, just one off the top of my head while I was sitting here listening to you guys talk. Thank you. It's very, very informative. So, where would I find leadership in a Justice League team? Like, and also, when thinking about what the places I was playing, like it didn't really have all that leadership onto it.
before we answer, modern age or golden age?
Modern age.
Thank you. We're figuring that out right now. If you actually go on, this is one of those neat things you can do. If you go to HC Realms, you can use the advanced search, which Amber is doing. So we've limited to modern age only. We're going to choose the Justice League keyword and choose leadership as the attack power. And then it should be able to give us all the characters that you're in the S's. You overscrolled. You overscrolled again. Justice League, right? Oh, it's just so many different Justice League versions.
Unfortunately, there is like 8 different versions of the Justice League keyword. We just went with Justice League.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here's your list just with the Justice League. You've got the OP Kit Aquaman. We've got this is the common Superman from Elseworlds. Pete Ross from Elseworlds, the uncommon. The Fast Force Superman from Elseworlds as well.
Geoforce.
Why? Don't say his name. He does not. He does not deserve that kind of recognition. From World's Finest. Okay, this is where we get into high rarities here, so you may want to ignore this part. I don't know. The Night Lantern, the Rare Prime, and the Chase Kingdom Come Superman has it. The Prime Common Captain Atom from Superman and Wonder Woman has it on his first 3 clicks. My gosh, this character got a little bit more interesting. Superman, the one tearing his shirt off in the uncommon slot, because there's multiples that are tearing his shirt off. And the rare Lex Luthor has the Justice League keyword and leadership. So that's just off the top of HC Realms' head. All right.
And as much as we say off the top of the head, like those are your options. That is what you have in modern age
with
for
the Justice League keyword.
Now, doesn't include Justice League of America, JLA, Justice League Incorporated, Justice League Inc., because all of these are separate keywords.
Yeah, Justice League Dark.
You can do that.
Justice League Dark.
Which is not the same as the Justice League Dark from the Justice League 52 set, oddly enough. But Justice League Dark also unable to use the Justice League Dark ATA.
I remember that because the qualifying keywords for that was Justice League.
I remember actually having to call over a judge on that at the first provincials in 401 games for The Rock. It was like, and my opponent had a first round bye, so nobody was able to catch it. And I was like, you know what? Just let him change his side. Just whatever, fix it, but don't dock the guy for it. It's a silly mistake that got missed.
Yeah.
So it's a silly mistake that shouldn't exist.
Yes, like that is no fault of it. Like the Justice League Dark character should be able to use the Justice League Dark TA, like ATA. That made sense.
Yeah. All right, Mike. What's up?
Alrighty. Alright, so we knocked out both of those two, like with the Ragnarok Hulk and the Strategic Grandmaster. Alrighty. So in running a swarm team, how should I? Like, I want to go, try at least build a team around that or around that strategy. Like, how would I get better at that? Like, would I have to just move all I want? I have to pick out the weak link to their team, or would I just okay, this one's off to the side with the rest of the guys, or if I were to swarm one character and pick them off, and then swarm somebody else and pick them off, what would I look for in a strategy?
Basically on that is you want to be able to out action. So as long as you have 2 to 3 characters based or at least engaged in combat versus one character, you are now swarming that character. So it's all about numbers. Basically, you want to have the numbers so that when you are attacking, you are able to make more attacks than they can make back at you. Now Jason's going to jump in as the king of the swarm and tell me everything I just said is wrong.
A lot of what you said is just a vague oversimplification. of things.
You weren't paying attention. I needed to answer.
Oh, I was paying attention. I was also making jokes with our other friends in the Patron Discord. But, all right. Step 1 to swarm. Focus. You need to pay attention to everything that your opponent is doing, in addition to all the options that you have against your opponent. One of the things that the new player to the swarm just kind of misses is that you need to put a lot of eggs into the basket. You need to be able to maximize how much you can do. It's not enough to just put all the characters on the board and hope for the best, because when you do that, you leave people behind. You need kind of a way to move the team around or make it easy to move the team around. In addition to which, swarm teams have what is possibly easiest to describe as the biggest area of disinterest creatable on the map. Because depending on how you approach the swarm, there are a number, there's so many targets on the board that sometimes are just not worth hitting. My best suggestion when approaching the current metagame of the swarm ideal is you want as many 0-point pogs coming out as you possibly can to limit mistake punishment. You don't get punished for mistakes if you lose a 0-point character. And in fact, in 90% of the proper builds that you can come out with these teams, your opponent is making a mistake by attacking those 0-point characters. Nathaniel is trolling now in the Patron Discord. But with that said, the easy targets are exactly that, the easy targets, but you need to make sure and limit the punishment you take. Because you have more characters doesn't mean your characters are worthless 100%. If there's more if my opponent has 3 figures and I have 10 figures, but one of his figures is worth 50 points, that's the easy one to kill. But if my opponent can kill one of my points or 2 of my figures in the same action and score 60 points off of me, the 50 points wasn't really worth it, and I still need to find a way to capitalize on some more points. So it's not as simple as go for the weak thing. You got to go for the thing you can kill and find a way to isolate the thing that can kill you. One of my attempts, one of the base strategies that I tried to use against Unimines was I had a swarm spread, and thus creating what we describe as the area of disinterest being the middle of the map. So my opponent had 2 choices. They had to stay back and not engage and wait turns to engage forward and possibly eat the occasional pulse wave for my team, or go all the way forward and expose themselves to the much stronger back end of my team. But at the same time, every attack my opponent was forced to make, I gave them the Sophie's choice of which Colossal am I going to attack back with, because I also had 3 Colossal Retaliators on my team. The swarm what the complication of building a swarm team is synergistics or synergy in general. It's one thing to throw a bunch of low point characters on the team. It's another to build a team with a bunch of low point characters that can work together. A prime example of onboard swarm that was really fantastic in the 400-point limited format that I loved watching and commentating on was Nick Springer's team. Now, Nick Springer, he brought an Overdrive, 2 Batroc the Leapers. For one, I loved saying Batroc the Leaper while I was watching his team. He had 2 Shredders on his team as well. And I can't remember, there was another lower point character on his team. He had a clone shredder and a mini shredder, basically. And the idea was you move forward with the Overdrive, you're in his face. You sidestep forward again, carrying, and the Batrocs can sidestep, get in. He also, that's right, he also had a shifting focus Batman at one point or on his team to perplex up attacks. He had a ton of empower, and it's one of those things that's you have all of a sudden all these characters that look small, but you put them together, and Batroc's got 2 damage, but then you've got Empower from Overdrive, then you got Empower from the Mini Shredder, so that's 2 damage getting added on to the Batroc the Leaper, and then Batroc the Leaper is doing 4 damage, possibly twice in a single turn. That's maximizing your swarm potential. It's not enough to say, hey, I got a lot of guys. it's better to say, I got a lot of guys that do, oh my gosh, watch what they do. You know, because not only is he getting this damage off from this extra damage from the Batroc, let's add in the penetrating damage coming from just sidestepping forward with some shredders. Just, and then, you know, when we talk about my team had the Devil Dinosaur, it had the Penguin, bystander creators, able to make more and more little guys, one click each. My opponent, in a lot of cases, they have to do 3 damage to it unless it perplex down their damage to attack my guys. My guys are they're not simple, quick, easy to deal with characters. You have to put some work into killing them, and if you put that work in, you're doing more damage in most cases in the current game than is necessary to kill these one-click characters. And I just go ahead and move my round table with it. So this is the many potentials of the Swarm, the many ideas of the Swarm. Also looked at Kenny. We talked about Kenny's top 8 team that had the Black Panther super rare from Avengers Defenders War. If you successfully rolled leadership, you get some more Wakandans. More Wakandans can come from him. As well, you got what he did was he created that Black Panther by removing the 65-point Loki. That 65-point Loki, by being removed with the round table, I'm better suited for this both thing, now will no longer trigger the stop click. And now he's got 2 10-point characters who technically are unscorable. And if any opponent does attack them and he happens to roll his super set or his shape change on it, he gets more of them. And they have incapacitate. You know,
I loved that team so much.
Everything about that team was great, specifically because of incapacitate. Because incapacitate is great against Unimind. It's one of many powers that are one of the few things that, like, if you can get those action tokens on the Unimind, oh baby, action tokens! Because when he's got 2 action tokens and you do actually manage to kill him and leave the 3 characters on the board, those 3 characters all have the same number of action tokens that he had. So if you left them with 2 action tokens, they all have 2 action tokens. Deal with it. I kind of want to play Batroc the Leaper with the Ninja Turtles now. The Leaper! The Turtles and the Frenchman.
Yeah, baby.
So yeah, that's from the guy who's been using large-scale teams, and I'm not necessarily the king of it. People have done better than me at it. Those are just the base things that you need to think about when building a swarm. So it's a matter of being able to get the damage out that you can with the number of little things. If I could make a suggestion when you're getting into the early days of swarming people, try some blades. Because what ends up happening is a lot of attacks, a lot of characters attacking, feels like probability control after a while. It's, okay, I attack, I hit. I attack, I missed. Okay, I attack, I hit blades. Okay, that didn't do any damage. I attacked with that guy, blades. Okay, that one did 5 damage. So it's if you can find a way to maximize attacks, and if you're using that blade strategy and you have a swordsman ID card, just saying, flurry blades, it's a thing.
And also with blades now being printed damage -1, there's a lot
Minimum.
of minimum being printed damage -1. There's a lot of 3 damage blades characters that essentially got better in the sense that now you're not too worried about the fact that you're rolling blades on a 3 damage character.
Does Katana do the same thing with the flurry and blades? Loki mentioned Katana, and I just have to check
I
that.
don't know if she gives other people flurry though. Isn't that what Swordsman does? He gives
Swordsman gives Blades, Claws, and Fangs to everybody on his inspiration, but anybody with Blades, Claws, and Fangs gets flurry. So I have to double check to see if Katana does that, because I'm talking about the inspiration, Loki. If that's what you're thinking as a call-in, but yeah, he says yes. So if you could double up on that, oh my gosh, beware my drop bears. Beware my bears. In the meantime, let's let Mike ask his next question.
So would the one I'm thinking about, the Namor from Civil War, the lazy ass sitting in his chair doing nothing like that, bringing out the pogs like that. I can't do any swarm with that because they're all one-hit characters, or would that?
No, you can. Let's see. Give him a power action, place adjacent to the Atlantean Warrior bystander, or give him a double power action, place 2. You may not use this power if they're more than 4. No, that's a perfectly fine stratagem. It's just that he takes up. So he works on the same fundamental strategy as the Devil Dinosaur. The reason I would take Devil Dinosaur over him is, for one, he's 10 points less, and 2, he makes 3 things at a time, and those 3 things that he does make have a little bit more flexibility. You're kind of limited in specifically what the Namor Atlantean Warriors can do. Now, granted, they're super strong with the ability to use charge, combat reflexes, and they also get
their free movement too, I think.
Yeah,
their movement doesn't get counted as an action.
That's very common amongst a lot of the bystander tokens. The Penguin and the Devil Dinosaur also both have those. But they do also have the Atlantis keyword. So any bonuses that you're getting for having the Atlantis keyword trigger on them. So I'm not saying the Namor's bad. His things are really good. They're base set able to do 4 damage with a 9 attack, not great, but they can also do 3 damage with a 10 attack or 2 damage with an 11 attack. Those are the 3 possibilities you can get out of the Atlantean Warriors. Devil Dinosaur is flexible because you got 3 that you can make at a time with Pulse Wave, or 3 that you can make at a time with Psychic Blast, or 3 you can make at a time with Blades, Claws, Fangs. Ideally, you could probably put both on a team as a starting base and go from there. But Amber's got a look on her face, and that's Trinity where you're going golden.
Sorry, there was I remember making an Atlantis team where things were getting +1, but I misremembered how that worked. So never mind my little investigation.
Also, don't forget, currently the selection of water maps that exist, not great.
Yeah, they're not really out there.
I love that. It's like, all right, we're going to make the aquatic movement ability significantly better. We're also going to take away all the water in the game. Guys, give me a break here. Give me something. So Namor also adds a little bit more combat potential as far as a character himself. Where Devil Dinosaur is a little bit slow moving, capable of being ranged at a distance and something like that. Neat, but Namor himself a little bit more beefy, especially once you get past those first 3 clicks, man. Holy smokes. And also, I mean, Namor also suffers from, if you do 3 damage to him, he loses the ability to make Atlanteans. Same problem that Devil Dinosaur has.
To do 3 damage to him.
And that's the difference, is that Devil Dinosaur is harder to do the 3 damage, with the exception of 2 characters that can get past those clicks. Nick Fury and Green Arrow. Namor, on the other hand, a 3 damage Psychic Blast gets through it, and so on and so forth. So,
Katana's Inspiration.
Katana's Inspiration is the same as Swordsman. Yeah, I mentioned it. I double checked. So he was right.
No. I didn't realize we were talking about ID cards. I thought we were talking about the actual Katana figure.
Yeah. So, that's and. That's
all, folks.
Long and short of it is that Devil Dinosaur is though preferable. Namor is an option, and I'm pretty sure he would work pretty okay with the Penguins, if you can make them. Him alone, not really going to make it as a swarm. Like, he's not going to make your team all of a sudden a swarm strategy. He's going to add bystanders to your team that create certain areas of disinterest to your opponent. But it's not going to like define your team as necessarily a swarm per se. It adds a swarm element to your team. You could add things to that to make it a little bit more oomphy. a little bit more reliable. Up to you, but
unfortunately, right now the Namor has a bit of a problem in the fact that he will actually shine better in a Golden Age tournament, where he has one of those keywords, very rare keywords that actually cross over between DC and Marvel. And if you can start throwing the DC Atlanteans in there, or even the mermaids in there in a Golden Age tournament, and
mermaids are still modern.
Yeah, mermaids are still modern. But yeah, play with that on, well, more Golden Age because of the map specifically. Mm-hmm. If you can get him on a map where he's teaming up with some low-end DC guys, who the low-end DC Atlantis guys are really good with swarming. With the trenches, the Atlanteans, and the mermaids, those guys are really good at swarming. So if you team them up with those guys, he'd do a lot better off in the swarming tactics than keeping modern in what options that you have for him nowadays.
Yep. Double checking somebody's work. Sorry. we apparently not a lot of folks are interested in coming on the camera. We get a lot of engagement during this show with the Patron Hangout, the Patron Discord, which perfectly cool. I actually kind of enjoy this element of it. Not a lot of people like being in front of the camera. It does tend to lead me into looking at things that I've read, and as a result, you get me staring at my phone. So I apologize that I am staring at my phone currently in order to figure something out. But
also, at any point, Chad, if you have a new question that has popped up, just let us know, and we will. Not
Chad, Discord or Chad. Chad. I thought you said chat.
Chad.
I'm sorry.
Chad. If at any point.
I'm not even a person to you.
I'm so used to hearing the word chat. I'm sorry, man. You're awesome. Love you, buddy.
Just let us know if you want to jump in. We'll come back to you. Michael, do you have another question?
I find that you love Chad, but you hate me. That's I find that very telling.
Wait,
we don't hate you. When did we hate you?
No, back when I called myself the uni patron like that, and he hates me now. He hates me now.
In my defense, you didn't play against 4 Unimines at Rocktober.
Oh my god, it's not letting me switch over. Sorry.
You go to an environment like Rocktober and play against 4 Unimines in a row, and then have somebody ask you to refer to them as a Unimind, and then we can talk about why I don't like you. You suffer as I have suffered, and then I'll listen to that nonsense.
Alrighty, so then my last question would be: is that yesterday, playing against the horde swarm of it was kind of like a level up. It was like you faced off the zombies the first level, play again the next round against the werewolves, a horde of werewolves, and then we didn't have enough time, but we were going to go against the Dracula's vampires in the third level. My team I brought with me was interesting, but I found that it wasn't very effective in that I only had one action per turn, and I put the Proteus character on the AD Hawkeye. And would you guys ever do something like that, or is that too risky? I thought, hey, wow, with his trait, Hawkeye's trait, and the upscale with Proteus and get like a 12 running attack, and he can running attack for infinity if he wanted to, like that with just boom, 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 like go all the way around the map. But he was also burned out pretty quickly. I was rolling ones like crazy. So would you guys, either just go ahead, tell me I'm stupid for doing that, putting Proteus on that Hawkeye, or was that,
Was Hawkeye the only thing on your team?
No. I had a Sandman from the Avengers set, or and the 50-point character was Banshee.
So you had to have a certain number, like point value.
Yeah. One of them had to be like 150, 150. Like so, and the middle of the pack here that like I put two together and made 100 points at it, like 65 and 35.
Okay.
So
total combination, like if you equip it, was included. Okay, so 100-point option was Hawkeye. The 150 was Sandman.
The Sandman was at 140.
140. And 50 was
the OP kit Banshee.
We need a healing somewhere in there. Because if you and the reason I say that, it's the Hawkeye Proteus idea was great, but then you mentioned the big problem that strategy has, and it's the idea that Hawkeye can take the damage from the Proteus and make him less effective, and that becomes problematic because that Hawkeye is SAF, squishy as the other word. He doesn't have a lot of clicks, and his defense itself is already pretty weak to boot. So what you would need to do is we'd need to find a way to invest one of those point values into something to make sure that Hawkeye lives at all times. And then maybe overpay for a TKer to keep that guy close to Hawkeye. I've done silly things like that. Like, I've seen a required build like yours where it's like you gotta have a point value this, point value this, and point value this. And I'll see something in the middle of the road where it's like, okay, cool, that's great, but I need this and this. Okay, so the 140-point character is going to be my TKer and Probber, and my 50-point character is going to be this, and my 100-point character is going to be my damage dealer. Or even worse, is my 100-point character is going to be my Probber, my 140-point character is going to be my TKer, and my 50-point character is going to be the root of my damage, because that's the kind of stupid you have to deal with when you're talking to Jason Collins.
So true.
You see? But then it'll work. And then somebody like Amber will be angry at me. She'll be like, this shouldn't work. Why is this working?
Also true.
Because Jason logic doesn't work. Anyway. Yeah, and I think that would be the only thing it sounds like you would have needed out of that was a little bit of nonsense healing to counteract that problem. When I did well with Proteus on my Superman, it was because I used an Indigo power battery, which gave my entire team support. So, that's just pure nonsense. 50-point Bizarro is also an option in Golden Age. Or Bizarro? I don't know what he's talking about. 50-point Bizarro with the 2 tokens. It's a thing. You just wait until you get like the hypersonic and go. Why are you looking at me like that? It's your turn. Go. I've talked to you just got to pull off nonsense sometimes and counteract your problems.
Yeah, there's honestly in a scenario like that where you're facing hordes of different figures as a specific scenario, go as crazy as you want. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not a typical 300-point modern age meta hyper competitive game. Those are the games where you want to have fun. You want to try something crazy. You want to do something crazy. Now, with that, as Jason said, as much as you want to go the crazy, there is also certain things that you do want to try to mitigate with that. And that is the fact that it's possible for that Hawkeye to take that Proteus damage. There are certain characters that just don't care about the damage, like Joker. That's a pretty prevalent strategy right now because turning him a click doesn't really do anything to him right now. But yeah, I mean, putting Proteus on Hawkeye to boost all of those stats and the fact that he can keep attacking, like in that scenario, Hawkeye's actually really freaking good because you've got these swarms of things coming at you, and Hawkeye is able to continue attacking, basically, where you're getting a bunch of attacks out of a single action, which is great.
12 attack, 9 range, by the way, too.
Any character that can attack more than once in a single action is already benefits your team, regardless of what they do. You're getting better out of this. That's why Flurry is so good, because you get those 2 attacks for one single action. You're getting more bang for your buck, basically. But when it comes down to it, whatever, you put Proteus on Hawkeye. He took the damage, but that's not necessarily a dumb or stupid thing to do. You worked within the scenario, and it worked. Granted, you may not have won, but it worked because you played it.
One good idea. Just got to work on the rest of the good ideas.
Yeah. Maybe just changing the characters that came with him.
Yeah. I know we had discussed the Sandman a little bit, and I thought that was a good idea. Because I feel like we had a bit of a conversation about this at some point, and I just neglected to offer up that get some healing for Hawkeye advice. I'm terrible at that. I'm like the worst for that. I feel like Jane Foster would have been the answer for that too.
Jane Foster is also a really cool supporter because she can support even when you're adjacent to.
Yes, once the quote unquote zombies start getting in there, you can still keep healing in panic mode. And Hawkeye's defense is already pretty terrible. I think she has defend though, like 9 attack with defend, 15 defense. So it doesn't really factor in. You're looking at what are you looking for?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where this Sandman is from that you're talking about.
The Avengers. No, not that one.
Oh,
it's the Avengers Assembled one.
Assembled. Golden Age.
Avengers Assembled.
That's the one that came off the board.
That is the set that I know nothing about.
It's okay. A lot of the competitive players don't know much about that set, with the exception of maybe Red Wolf. And
no, now I know exactly. Because my problem is that I was stuck on Sandman from DC's Sandman, not Marvel Sandman. This one?
Yep, that's the one. Takes water, damage in water, can pop off the board, can poison, can barrier, I believe.
Was he the one that broke worlds, or that they had to do a surprise errata before worlds?
A surprise rule errata before worlds for the Sandman, yes. So. Oh. Yeah. All right.
That's all my questions for tonight.
Awesome. So, Chad, if you got nothing else?
I got nothing.
All right. Then we will be signing off for this evening. I want to thank Mike. I want to thank Chad. I want to thank Ensign Redshirt, who's also Nathaniel, Loki the Trickster,
Semper
Clix, Harley Clix, everybody who kind of joined in and chit-chatted with us while we went through this episode and muddled our way and over-talked about a whole bunch of other topics as we do. We got to see the emergence of Jason's influences from watching too much Magic Finance. We got to see my conspiracy theories. All this, we got to hang out with some really cool people. If you want to join the Patron Hangout, just check us out at patreon.com/MavericKlicks. Any valuation in which you become a patron, you get access to this show. And we do also appreciate the support as well. We are going to be actually ordering our next round of action tokens this coming week, as we have to put out the September and October ones, because we sent out the July and August ones. Thanks, by the way, for updating me on that one, because forgot almost. I'm a terrible host of a show right now.
We do send them out every other month, so you do get 2 at a time. And
that's for the $10 or higher patrons. $5 or a month gets you access to all of our non-live videos early. This weekend, Amber should be putting one up.
We do have a Metafix coming, I swear.
And we're going to be back. We're back on our filming schedule to a certain degree. We should be getting our daughter to be playing a little bit with Amber, and Amber should be doing another Dial It Up very soon as well. So we're back on track. Also, for all you guys who are watching this right now as patrons or in the channel right now, guess what? Our next Patron Hangout is next week because this one was very late in the month.
We're sorry, Rocktober
we're sorry.
threw off
Yeah.
everything.
So yeah, we're gonna do that. Actually, you know what? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that to us again. I almost decided to say let's do it after Harley releases, but no. We've done that to ourselves enough. Late nights before tournaments, bad idea.
Also, because then we're running into my birthday. So
Yeah.
November's a really rough month for us.
So next week, that's it. We're having our next Patron Hangout next week. If you do want to jump in on this yourself, check us out again, patreon.com/Clix. Get access to this and all kinds of other neat stuff, as well as our Patron Discord at all values. That's where a lot of our other questions have been coming, and we're super excited that this has been a very, very cool addition to the Patron system. So
yeah, our Discord is basically just a chat server. You get direct access to us and all of our other patrons to just hang out and chat while we're not doing these once a month patron. We talk about HeroClix and video games and movies, and we troll Jason while he's on the Meta Lab. And it's also
and we troll Jason while he's at work.
And also, well, if you can't join with microphone or a camera here on the our live show, you can jump into the chat like our other patrons have done today and just talk to us or ask questions while we're here live. So it's a great little tool that you got access to as long as you're a patron.
And for those of you guys in the YouTube chat and you want to hang out for a couple extra minutes, I'm going to address some of your questions in there. Just kind of type them out real quick. I'll mention names. Don't overdo it. Like any questions that are in there right now, I'm going to go and attend to. But thank you guys very much. All of you have a very good night.
Yeah, pretty much the Discord is just to troll Jason.
It is. It's why I created it.